But I'm coming from the perspective of both an operating entrepreneur, small business, and a consultant working with several other e-commerce entrepreneurs. So when this situation came about and it started looking like things were going to begin shutting down, I mean, beyond, hoping everyone stays safe and we get through this, quickly and quietly, as an e-commerce entrepreneur, I saw this as, it's a huge opportunity. No one's going to be going out to the store to get things. So they're going to be relying more and more on, those shipments coming to them from Amazon, from all of the vendors that are out there. But coming from an operator's perspective, my fear was, our warehouse is even going to remain open. So in terms of like the points that Mark asked me to come up with, thinking about it in terms of an operator, the first thing that comes to my mind as an operator is my warehouse or 3PL, how are they handling this? Have they been communicating with me? Luckily, I have providers that they've been giving me almost daily updates on their operations, whether or not they're providing their employees with proper PPE, and also, what are their contingencies? Just because they're operating today, that doesn't mean they're going to continue operating in a week or a month. So that being said, you need to think about what your contingency in turn is, in terms of perhaps moving your inventory out, allocating it from somewhere else. So those are kind of the initial thoughts that came to mind. Then, as Krish mentioned, how am I communicating with my customers? So, the tone depends on the type of product you sell. You really don't want to come across as opportunistic at all, but it is an opportunity. And if you strike the right tone, the goodwill is there. Looking into certain causes that you could somehow support or partner with, that's something I'd really suggest. It's also something that I'm looking into myself right now with, trying to bring up sort of a venture in this climate. So that's sort of the perspective of how do you transition into bringing something to life. And then kind of, if you have a bit more time on your hands to think about, your logistics, is it optimized? So as Mark mentioned, I'm working with him with a client right now, and we're doing a real deep dive into a bunch of different 3PL partner options. So we're looking at everything from, where their 3PLs are positioned in terms of how that relates to the different shipping zones, to focusing on their SKUs and how they're organized. And also one thing that I focused on a lot in my career is packaging engineering, because your packaging engineering as an e-commerce business is, I mean, it's almost nearly as important as your product itself, because it determines a lot of your costs. So that's something that you would want to be working on if you have the luxury of time to sort of dig into your numbers while we're all riding this out. So kind of in closing, this is an opportunity. You just need to play it right, and you need to ride out the storm. But if you do ride out the storm, it will be, I guess, smooth sailing, for lack of better words.
So I heard a few things in there thanks so much for sharing that. But I heard a couple things that were interesting. You said, tone depends on product, 3PL positioning versus shipping zones, packaging engineering, that kind of the three of the many things really valuable in there. When you talk about tone, and tone depends on product, can you give an example of, what would be a poor use of tone and what would be a good use of tone for a product for someone out there?
I mean, it's actually an unfortunate sort of thing, because they meant well, but say I'm close by New York City, so we get a lot of very localized advertising. And a local restaurant in New York, I just recently started getting sponsored ads by them. And they just posted a picture of a t-shirt, and they said, buy this t-shirt. It's supporting our staff. But it's a good cause, but the way it was executed, putting the hard sell out there like that, there's a lot better ways that they could have gone about that. I mean, they did, mention right up front that it was benefiting their employees. But there are so many different ways that you can approach that type of thing than just saying, hey, here's a t-shirt, buy it. A better example of that, I did see a fashion company that is donating a portion of their proceeds to UCLA. So, I mean, just the change in tone there, from just straight up buy this to we're having a sale, a portion of the proceeds are going to this cause. I feel like that at the very highest level is just a better way of adjusting your tone.